We have Mason Miller and Wendy Lundeen are going to give a presentation today. I'll start with Mason Miller, Source Water Protection Specialist with Drinking Water Inventory and Protection Team in the Drinking Water Special Functions section. He has a bachelor's degree in Agriculture Economics Resources from Texas A&M University. Mason's worked for TCEQ since 1999 as an environmental investigator, source water protection specialist, and in surface water treatment plant optimization. His duties include source water protection, Texas optimization program, this PDW conference, he's the director, and GPS coordinator for TCEQ. Thanks.
Thank you, Sean. Hey, it's good to see everyone here today. I'm so glad that y'all came out to see the afternoon session. Sometimes people depart at lunchtime, so I was told a long time ago by a gentleman, the people that are still here today, right now, are the ones that care about learning. And so I think all of you in here, y'all are really interested in learning more about source water protection. But one of the things I want to say is I may not teach some of you guys anything. There's some gentlemen sitting here. Brent, I've known for a long, long time, and Brent was one of the mentors I had. And I say I'm not going to teach you anything. What we're going to do is we're going to try to bring some stuff back to the forefront that you may have let slip out of your mind. So we're going to talk about the Source Water Protection Program. I'm going to go about 15 minutes, and then I'm going to turn it over to the Source Water Protection Contractor and Company, CDM Smith, with Wendy. So let's get started. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to give an overview of what the program is and the history that we have going on. So this program has been active since 1986. And we started out doing wellhead protection, and then we expanded that to source water protection in '96. We wanted to try to reach the bigger populations as well. So one of the things that we're measured by is the number of water systems that we do, the number of community water systems, and then also our population. So that allows us to work with the water systems that maybe have a population of 50, and also lets us work with populations as big as 2.7 million. So we touch on all the bases, and so each year we do a mixture of surface water and groundwater. So we try to protect everybody, whether you're a big system or a large system. So this is the plan year that we've got going on this year. So the blue ones represent the source water participants that we've done from the very beginning. So we're looking at about 1,000, a little over 1,000 source water protection plans that we've done. And the green ones represent the project area that we're working on right now. So the Aqua Springs South is one of the partners we have. We've been working with Aqua for years, and we do several of their systems. And we're working in Chambers County and Harris County. And also we're working with Brazosport Water Authority, and we're working with the cities of Angleton, City of Clute, Freeport, Lake Jackson, Richwood, and Oyster Creek. And with that, we started working with the Oyster Creek project. So when I talked to the gentleman from Oyster Creek, and he understood, that water doesn't stay in with the city limits, it goes around, it follows the aquifer. And so he helped me get a whole bunch of water systems in that area. Then we also, the surface water intake that you can see off to the side there, it is there in New Braunfels. So we're working on the Guadalupe River there in Comal County. So what this does is we've been working in Comal County for several years now, and we've now completed all of the community water systems in that entire county. So that's been a big project for us. So this is the project areas that we've been working on in FY24, so we're working with 24 systems. The Safe Drinking Water Act, when it modified that, it said that we need to identify the drinking water supply areas and then delineate the boundaries of the assessment areas and inventory the potential sources of contamination, and then implement a source water protection plan that is easy to understand. So this was the major components. So the first thing you do is you meet with the water system and you do an introduction. And what that means is Mason calls and talks and begs somebody to participate and explains to them that it's a free program and it's not going to cost you anything. And so we do that first, we get them to participate, and then we have an introduction meeting. And during that meeting, we talk about the known and the unknown. So a lot of times we'll have people that they work in the water system there where they grew up. And so they know where a lot of the old potential sources of contamination may have been. And we try to bring that stuff to the forefront. And then we go out and do the inventory itself. So we go out on the source water protection inventory, and we look for potential sources of contamination. We're going to talk a little bit more about PSOC examples. And then at the end, we do a contingency plan, and we list the best management practices. So when we go out there and we identify, say, an abandoned well, then we try to implement a best management practice to get that well capped, plugged, or something to keep it from being contaminant where it could potentially be harmful to the drinking water. So here's some examples of some PSOCs here. In top left, we've got a confined animal feeding operation. In the center, we've got a cemetery. We've got a dump there where you've got batteries and acid that can leak from a dump there, and storage containers. Now, these are things found at a different farm. That's some acids and some acid wash. And we got an open hole, an abandoned well in the center. And then the golf course. And in that golf course picture, I always liked the fact that when I happened to take that picture, there was a fertilizer spreader driving around on the golf course, which makes that a potential source of contamination, putting out fertilizers, pesticides, and chemicals. And then in the bottom left, you have an above-ground storage tank with a gas tank there. And anytime you have that, you have potential of leaks. Sometimes they're underground storage tanks, and they have a chance of leaking on that too. So best management practices are the most effective pollution control practice. Implementation helps protect the source water and public health, and then we identify the best management practice and match it up with each potential source of contamination. Then we assist the public in better understanding the source of their drinking water. Sometimes that may be putting up a sign, such as the one that's in the front right here on the podium, that identifies, hey, you're driving into a source water protection area, be mindful of your activities, and it also reminds the people that maybe live in that area, hey, maybe I don't need to dump that used lawnmower oil out on the ground. Things like that, just trying to make the public aware. So here's a couple best management practices up here at the top left. We have a field border strip. I know we don't talk about agriculture a whole lot here, but anytime you've got a field there, say corn or milo that may be crop labeled for certain pesticides, you've got a field strip there, a border barrier that allows the water to slow down and filters out some of those contaminants before they get into your surface water. The center one there is just a grassed waterway between two crops. And again, it slows the flow of the water down and it filters out some of the fertilizers and pesticides. And the top right one there those are terraces. The water has to go around each one of those terraces, and it doesn't just cut straight through the field. And that's got a twofold practice to it. It also keeps the soil erosion down, which is one of the biggest agricultural losses we have, is soil erosion. We got baffles here, these rocks, wattles, whatever you want to call them. Again, it slows the water down and catches those contaminants. Those top three would all be considered structural best management practices to something that we had to build or construct. And then the ones across the bottom there, starting from left to right, you have labeling. And the one that says out there, drains the waterway, no dumping. Same with the center one there. It's just educational. And the far right one is doing a BMP follow-up each year. So we come back and we look at the source water protection area. What has changed? Have new houses moved in? Have new industries come into the area that may be new potential sources? And we update the best management practice report. Well, in this particular case here, this water system, this surface water body has a pipeline that runs across the top of the lake. I mean, it's not underground, it goes across the top. Well, we went out there and there's a sign, as you can see in this picture, and what we're doing is on that back side of the sign, the phone number had changed, the emergency contact number, and that water system had no idea. And there was basically a Post-it note stuck on there with the new contact information. So it's important to go back and revisit this report. Sean, myself, and the ones that do source water, when we hand these reports out at the end, we tell them this is just a report. This does not protect your drinking water at all. You have to actively look at your plan each year in order to protect your water. Sitting it on the bookshelf does not protect your water. Some other examples of best management practices, as a couple of years ago, we created a source water protection brochure. And so this is something that's available on our TCEQ Swap Texas website that I'll give out in a little bit. You can download this and print it on your own pieces of paper that's cheaper than handing out brochures. And if you ever give tours of your water system to some of the students from your local school, it's something that you can hand out to each student that comes there as an educational material. A lot of times, the student may not be the problem, but when they get home to their parents and they hand it to them, and I actually had a little girl tell me one time when I told them about not dumping used oil on the ground, yeah, Daddy just dumps that out there on that rocks pile back there in the back. And so I was like, well, tell your dad maybe to try to do something different. So it's educational for sure. And this is that brochure, GI 604 is what you could download. There it is right there. Yeah, GI 604. Sorry about that. And then here's an example of the source water protection area. So this system here, it worked out real good. They were a Superior water system, and then they put their drinking water protection area sign right below it. And when you go into this city, that's the first thing you see as you come in. And so we provide some signs to you, and you can also download that template and have your own signs created and hang up. And it's just a good public education source. All right, so the last thing part of it is a contingency plan. I've covered that already, where you touching on what do you do if there's a problem. In that particular case with the pipeline as an example, their contingency plan has who to call if there is a problem, and also if there's an interstate runs over the top of that lake as well. And they have a contingency plan on where they can come in there if there's an oil spill on the interstate or a diesel spill, they can come in there with those booms and stop that from spreading to the entire lake. So that's the example of a contingency plan. In conclusion, we want all public water systems to create a plan eventually. We will make the plans easy to accomplish and maintain. When I first started, the reports were 100-something pages long. That's too much. So we simplified the plans. We put down there, what do you need to know? And we assist water systems in maintaining the program and work together to provide the best possible water to the customers. We will assist the public in better understanding their source water and support the implementation of best management practices. So the Source Water Protection and Water Security contract this year is through CDM Smith Incorporated. That's their TCQ Prime, and they're going to speak next. And they work with EJA and Associates, RJN Subcontractors, and H2O Partners. Some of the things they did this year, and Wendy's going to touch on these more, is the cybersecurity workshop and our generator safety workshop. So the other source water protection partnership that I have was with Texas Rural Water Association, but they have several requirements that they do. It's an SA program. You have to be a public water system, have at least one well or intake, be willing to develop a steering committee, be willing to implement at least one best management practice, and be willing to carry out public education. So there's the information, and Frank Hernandez does the program for rural water. Frank's sitting in the back of the room back there, and he'll be next door if you want to work with Frank. The other partnership we have is the Texas Forest Partnership, and they're implementing a Texas Partnership in Forest and Water, and they're basically covering the relationships between forested drinking water, having a best management practices. So water from forested area is 60% cleaner than water that comes from non. So they're trying to work with foresters to sustainably harvest forest land. The other partnership we worked on this year is with the Texas Parks and Wildlife. We're implementing a source water protection plan in one state park each year. This last December, we completed our 5th state park. We've completed projects for the Guadalupe River State Park, Choke Canyon, Pedernales Falls, South Llano River, and this last year we went to Lost Maples State Natural Area. And that was a lot of punishment to have to go to Lost Maples State Natural Area, I promise you guys. And this is the picture that we took last year. These guys are really, really happy to be a part of this program. And it's something that they're not a community water system, but as I said a while ago, we believe in protecting the water for all of the Texans. So they are a transient water system, but we went ahead and we're doing that, and we're continuing this project. We'll be doing a 6th one this next fall. This is just a FMT assistance thing. You may want to see that one right there. If you're needing any free assistance at your water system, go ahead and contact FMT at tcq.texas.gov. They do free training and technical assistance. I'm going to turn it over to Andy Waite real quick. Andy's going to give you an update on the coliform sampling that was done.
I'm Andy Waite with Thompson UTA. With the help of IDEX and EPA, we were able to do some sampling. What we were doing is total coliform sampling. We had 97 people come by and take a nice little sample, and then they stuck their fingers in the water, right? And the purpose of this is not to say that, oh, you can just be lackadaisical about how you take your samples, right? What we wanted to do is we wanted to find out is how easy is it to contaminate it, right? And today's results show that the odds are about 1 in 97 or higher, right? Because we didn't get any of them positive, right? And what I'm trying to say as the end note of this is, if you get a positive in your drinking water system, in your TCR samples, believe that it's in the water, act appropriately, right? Take care of it. You may never see it again because you did all the right things, right? That's what you want, right? But if you get one, just, ducks on a June bug. Boom, get right after it right then, because both the method and if your samplers are taking any kind of reasonable care, it really is. It's in the water. And that's all I got. Thank you much.
So as Mason mentioned earlier, my name is Wendy Lundeen. I'm a senior project manager with CDM Smith. I've been there for almost a decade, or I've been here in Texas for almost a decade now. I've got a lot of varied background that has helped me kind of really understand a lot of the sources of contamination that we're going to go through here today. So what I wanted to do is just start with some highlights on the program. Mason kind of walked you through how the program is laid out on a really high level, so I'm going to go ahead and do the same. Again, it's data collection. We have that initiation meeting. From there, we'll go out and do some field verification, generate your report, and then have a closeout where we sort of show you the results and help you set you up for success in taking the next steps. As you mentioned earlier, we did a number of different systems throughout the state, primarily focused in the Southwest area, but in addition, we did the NBU surface water system. We also did the workshops throughout the state as well. We had 3 generator safety workshops located in Tyler, San Angelo, and Corpus. The last one, Corpus Christi, we did record it, so if you are interested in seeing that, it will be available on the TCEQ website, and I'll show you some instructions on how to find that. You can go to the TCEQ website. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, on the right-hand side, you can find a link to the TCEQ channel, YouTube channel. Click on that. From there, you can either click on the tile if you see what you're looking for show up immediately. If it does not show up immediately, go ahead and enter that into the search engine. The cybersecurity is 1 video, and the generator safety consists of 3 separate videos, so you may want to go to the playlist section. Additionally, this is where you will be able to find recordings for this PDW conference afterwards. So if there were sessions you were unable to attend because there were just too many good things going on, you will also be able to eventually find them here at the TCEQ YouTube channel. So let's go ahead and get started. So if you agree to sign up, which I highly recommend you do because it is free, after Mason has convinced you and you agree to be on board, he then assigns your system to me, and me and my team will go out and do a bunch of records review or data desktop searches, right? So in addition to the information that's provided by TCEQ, we go out and pull electronic data records. And what this is it sources all of the different potential contaminations from various different databases, federal, state, local, and pulls them into one individual report for us to process. So in addition to looking at these, we also do Google drive-bys, right? Because they're not always the latest and greatest data. Texas is growing. We've got a lot more people here than we did last year, and it's continuing to grow as we see development, we see new businesses, we see new industries popping up all over the place. So we want to make sure that we're getting the latest and greatest from our desktop research. So this year, we found quite a few PSOCs based on our assessments. For the 24 public water systems that we looked at, we found 865 different PSOCs. They represented 65 types in the 4 counties that we looked at. In addition to potential sources of contamination, we also identified 358 private water wells within the close proximity of these PWS systems. The reason we include water wells is because while they may not have contaminants in them, right? It's just another water well. They are a direct source for a potential contaminant to get into your aquifer, right? So if you've got a well in the middle of a cow field and it's not separated, maybe it's in a low point, anything that's coming in that gets on the ground has the potential to run into that well, especially if it's not being maintained, right? That well is a direct pathway to your aquifer. So dumping anything that gets dumped on the ground, anything, there's a reason that we want to have these up and maintained. So animal waste, ponding, fertilizers, pesticides. Mason mentioned the father who was just dumping the old motor oil out the back. All of those things, if they are near an old well that's maybe abandoned but not properly abandoned, can find its way directly into your aquifer very, very quickly. So this is a potential source that we want to keep a close watch on. And it's good to have an understanding of how many you have in the near proximity of your own wells. Another one that we see a lot of, especially in the greater metro areas, North Harris County, are auto repair shops, tire shops, salvage, towing. There's a lot of potential contaminants that these facilities use: waste oils, hydraulic fluids, antifreeze, grease, lubricants. All of those things can potentially contaminate your source water or your potential drinking water. The activities that they have that could allow these things to get into your system, whenever they're doing maintenance, if they spill or they're not cleaning it up properly while they're dismantling something or doing their repairs, all of those activities have the potential to release that contaminant onto the ground where it could find its way into your water system. Another common one that we see across the state is petroleum storage tanks. Back in the 70s, all of these single-walled underground tanks were removed. For the most part, what we see now are double-walled tanks. They're less likely to leak. However, if you do have historic single-walled tanks in your area, they may have leaked at some point, and there may be an existing plume. So just something to be aware of. But obviously, the contaminants that you're going to see with these petroleum tanks are going to be the hydrocarbons and the gasolines and the other fuels that are stored underground. The big issue with these underground tanks is that you can't see when they're leaking, right? So if there's a problem, you don't know because it's underground, out of sight, and out of mind. Another one that we see, particularly around industrial areas or machine shops or metalworking shops, similar contaminants, right? So you're looking at grease, you're looking at lubricants. In addition, you may have some heavy metals or some metal shavings. And the activities that are going to allow these things to potentially be released into the environment where they may connect with your aquifer would be the fabrication, when they're doing assembly, disassembly, repairs, or if there's just a general leak or spill. Chemical storage is another potential source of contamination, right? So we have a lot of different industries doing a lot of different things across the state. So these chemicals can be in the form of liquids, powders, pellets, just depending on what their use is. And again, the activities are, if they're not being properly contained, if they're not being properly stored, if they're uncovered, the containers are open, or the containers are not in good shape, like you see here in the photo, that has the potential to be released into the environment and get into your source water. Another one, which is one of my personal favorites, are septic tanks. So we have a lot of these, especially in rural areas, particularly where the system doesn't provide wastewater collection and treatment. Similar to underground storage tanks, out of sight, out of mind. A lot of people who own septic tanks don't know that they own them potentially, or if they do, they don't know what kind of maintenance, or they don't know that they should be doing maintenance on these facilities and having them inspected and having them pumped out regularly. So again, a lot of different, different contaminants that you would expect to see: nitrates, coliforms, and then activities, just if they're not maintained, overflows, clogs, if they're not operating properly through lack of maintenance or other issues. Boat storage, boat ramps. We've got a lot of Great Lakes, a lot of water, a lot of good water. The lakes are full this year, for the most part, at least primarily on the east side, which is good news. But again, as you have boats on the water, it's a direct source for some of these things to get into that water. So fuel during the filling activities, particularly when you're doing a fill on the water, if there's any spill, it's going to go directly into that surface water or lake. Also, when you're doing cleanup, right, those cleanup supplies, if you have other things in your boat, batteries, paints, metals, all of that stuff, if you're working near the water or in the water, has the potential to very quickly cause a problem. So we just need to be aware that while these are fun and these are recreations, this is an area where everyone who's on the water can help get involved to manage this contamination. So once we've gone through that, we've done our initial desktop review. We'll then sit down with you. We'll go over what we found, right? So that we'll show you sort of the results from the EDRs and the stuff that TCEQ provides, along with our aerial review of the imagery. We'll interview you to find out if there's things you know about, maybe historically, or things that have been built recently since the imagery has been updated. Give you an overview of the program in a lot more detail, and just talk about your system and scheduling to move forward for field verification. The next step after that is the field verification. So our team, we have field teams of 2 that will go out and they will review every PSOC that we've identified through our data review, that we identified through the project initiation meeting. And then as well, when they're out there, the teams will be looking for potential sources that we didn't catch in any of those 3 previous data searches. So in addition to that, we also will do a survey of the well, right? So GPS locating that, to sub-meter accuracy. So part of that, the data collection, just to let you know, we do use a survey 1 through 3 through Esri, and GPS location. It is captured immediately in the field. It is very accurate, and that information is then shared back with TCEQ, not only on the well locations, but also on those PSOCs so that databases can be updated. The other thing that we do while we are out there is hang your new drinking water protection area sign. Again, there's a lovely example of one here. These really just let the public know, one, that you've participated, but then also that the area that they're in is where their drinking water comes from, and it just creates that extra bit of awareness. From there, we'll go ahead and develop the report. The report is divided into 5 separate sections. The first section includes an introduction. It really just talks about the program and the background. It gives an overview of the water system. It's a combination of information that's commonly available on Drinking Water Watch, as well as what we find when we're in the field, and then through the discussion with the operators. Section 2 will go over the historic record search and field inventory. So looking at your wellhead protection area, these are typically, we do a minimum of a 1/4 mile around each individual wellhead. And then if you have a high producing well or a well that has a high flow rate, we'll look at maybe a 1/2 mile. It really just depends on what that well capacity is and what the aquifer is doing. But we'll look at that wellhead protection area, identify PSOCs within that 1/4 mile radius or the WPH or QMR, and then also things around the edges, right? Just because it's right outside doesn't mean it's necessarily no longer a threat. So we want to make sure that we're capturing everything, that's reasonably in that area so that you're aware of it. So it'll go over that. It'll go over the results of the inventory and what we found. Section 3 talks about best management practices, right? So BMPs, we love our acronyms. So it'll give you a list of the recommended best management practices based on the potential sources of contamination that we found. It'll have a description of that. And then in the appendices, we also have a funding table. So it's just a list of sources that you and your PWS may be able to leverage if you are looking to implement some of these best management practices. So some of the BMPs, these are going to be the most common ones. The first one is my favorite. I think it is the most effective thing you can do, and it is one of the low-hanging fruits. So it's easy and it doesn't cost as much as some of the structural ones that Mason was talking about earlier, right? So outreach, right? So creating awareness within the community. We've already given you the sign. We'll give you some of those brochures that Mason had shown earlier. But it's really just letting the community know where their water comes from and what they personally can do to protect their drinking water, right? So encouraging that active participation and their cooperation, right? So examples would be, in addition to the brochure, door hangers you can hang out, especially in the immediate vicinity of the well. If you wanted to do mailers, I don't know how many of you guys still send out postcards or mailed out bills. So you could put maybe a little link on the bottom reminding people about their source water and where it's coming from. Or if you do a stuffer, maybe you could do a stuffer on the envelope for your bills. That's a good way. Obviously, we have the signs. And then finally, school and student outreach. It's just, like getting to that next generation, setting them up for success so that they know what's in their future. And again, community hotlines, right? So if you can encourage people to participate, some people need less encouragement than others. They like to let you know what they see out there. But again, it's in the community's best interest to get engaged and to feel like they can make a difference and help protect their drinking water. Some other best management practices, good housekeeping. This is a big one, particularly when we start looking at some of those automotive facilities that we talked about earlier, right? So making sure they're not leaving oil, used motor oil, gasoline, other chemical solvents on the ground, right? That they're cleaning up immediately if they have a spill, that they're being stored properly, they're being handled properly, and they're being disposed of properly, right? So tight sealing lids, out of the rain, and then leveraging recycling programs wherever we can. EPA does have a series of fact sheets. I believe there's just under 30 that are available online that you can go and download for free that'll give you some additional resources and some additional best management practices based on what you're seeing here, and it'll point you in the direction of some more information. The auto parts and maintenance, there are owner-operator specific education programs and best workplace practices for these industries and these businesses. So targeted at something that we have across the state, we have in every almost every city. There are specific guides that can be used to help communicate to them what they should be doing to protect their drinking water. Mason had mentioned the oil and gas operators, so getting to know who is in your area, right? So there's a lot of really good information. We'll go ahead and pull that for you. But while you're waiting to sign up, because I'm sure everyone's clamoring to join, the Texas Railroad Commission does maintain a list of wells and pipelines with contact information. So, and again, knowing those pipelines are there, knowing those tanks, knowing those oil wells are there, reaching out, getting to know them, so that way, if they have an issue, they know to contact you, or if you see something, you know who to reach out to remedy the situation. We talked about septic tanks. There's a lot of very good resources available, educational programs. TCEQ also has inspectors. I believe they're assigned by region. So if you do find that maybe you have some homeowners that you can tell are not maintaining their tanks, and either they're not engaging in a way that makes you comfortable or you don't want to approach them, you can reach out to TCEQ to find your representative, and they will then follow up on that for you. Mason talked about land management, some specific things around agriculture, but again, fertilizers, herbicides, and pesticides. We see that a lot, not only for farming areas, but also for things like nurseries, and golf courses are a big one. Got to keep them green, and overuse of the chemicals that do that is a frequent occurrence. Section 4 of the report talks about the contingency planning. So if something does go wrong, who can you reach out to, right? So whether that's in your local news agencies, who are the oil and gas operators if you see something wrong. If you've got another utility district in your area, maybe there's something wrong with their wastewater treatment plant, all of that information will be stored there. Again, it needs to be updated. It needs to be reviewed regularly to make sure that that contact information is the latest and greatest. And then again, Section 5 is just a high-level summary and recommendation of what is contained in the report. Mason had mentioned the Swap Texas website, so we do have a specific website dedicated to this outside of TCEQ. TCEQ does have a source water website within their program, but we also have this external one. But again, yeah, so Section 5, so that's what's covered in the report. Section 5 is really just a summary of those sources and the contamination. Once it's done, once we have the report together, we'll meet with you again to have your closeout meeting. At that point, we'll go over the report. We'll give you a hard copy of it. We'll also give you an electronic copy of it. That electronic copy has electronic versions of the sign here, so that's where you'll get the template. You can get copies of the brochures in various print formats for you, as well as large copy maps of your wells along with the PSOCs near it. Again, they're intended to be used. They're not intended to go on the shelf. The map should go on the wall. Update it with a Sharpie. Business goes out, cross it off. Don't delete it, because you might want to know it's there sometime in the future. But you can go ahead and then just add new wells to it, add new PSOCs as we continue to grow. So that is primarily what I wanted to talk to you about today. I really hope that you guys sign up for the program if you haven't already. It is free. It is through TCEQ. Mason Miller is the key point of contact there, so I hope to see you in the future.
Yeah, I wanted to add a couple of things that she touched on right here, and I should have done a better job. But the swaptexas.org, you can go through and get to what you call the swap viewer, and you can zoom in to where your water system is. You can turn on the well icon, you can turn on your capture zone, and you can turn on all the potential sources of contamination that we know about already. And one of the things that Wendy and I do when we go out and find these PSOCs, we can update the database so that you can check online and see that what has come up new in your well. And also, some of them may have been mislocated. Believe it or not, people make mistakes. I've had a animal feeding operation show up in the Waco area that was actually in Lubbock. It was just one, you get a degree off on your GPS, and next thing you know, the PSOC shows up in the wrong system. Well, that system was actually being dinged for having a CAFO that was actually hundreds of miles away. So that's why it's important to do follow-ups on these projects. Other thing I'd like to do, just show of hands. I'm recognizing some faces in here. Raise your hand if you've participated in a source water protection program. I know we got 1 there, 2, 3, 4. Heather, you've done some of your systems in the past. That's right. So if y'all are interested, definitely reach out to Wendy or myself. We can put you on a list. We also have the Texas Rural Water Association. I touched on it a while ago. That's a very important. That's something that say that you did your plan maybe 15 years ago, and you want to do revisit that, do a follow-up. Well, that's something that Texas Rural Water Association can come back out there and walk you through the plan again. You may have added a well. We have some systems that we did their wells 10 years ago, and those wells have been plugged, and they've got wells somewhere else. Well, that report's no good anymore, so we can do a follow-up on that. Well, that concludes this. Thank y'all very much.